Welcome to the show, everyone. You're watching UAP Truth 33. I'm John. I'm your host. Today, I got some footage from Mexico. Apparently, it seems to be a credible case. The craft that was observed, it appears to be it was a triangular craft with a row of lights. It hovers above some houses and whatnot. People are filming. Uh, then it flies off. Um, It's definitely anomalous. It's not an aircraft you would expect to see in the sky. It doesn't have the correct, navigation lights that aircraft use. It was just this row of white lights, but you could tell it was triangular in nature. So I'm going to show that to you. Let you guys, what do you guys think? I'm automatically thinking, you know, advanced military stuff when it comes to these triangular type of crafts, but it did look like it was possibly very large. But being as though it was sighted in Mexico, for all we know, who knows, man? Maybe border control guys called in the big guns. You know what I mean? And they sent down some advanced military type of assets. I don't know, but I'm going to show it to you. Then there's another one. It's a cruise ship. They took a picture of what they believe is a UFO. I'm going to tell you, it kind of has like a bird type of shape, but I will say this. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Custodian files, but he shows these things that he calls dragons because when he first saw them, he thought these were dragonflies, right? And he lives out by the Delray Marina, and apparently this is a hot spot. Any aircraft that goes past, these things zip past at like 2,000 miles an hour. Can't even see it with the naked eye. He has to slow down the footage in order for you to see it. This thing is like making maneuvers around jets and just crazy anomalous. And it makes a click on his video screen. It sets off. He has a radar detector, for a car, and it sets that thing off. When the things go past, that thing will start beeping. Very, very interesting cases, Custodian files. I'll leave a link in the description. Please go check him out. Tell me what you guys think. And some people have said to him that it's birds, but I don't know any birds that fly 2,000 miles an hour. And I think that this thing, but it's funny because some of them do appear like they have wings, right? But you can tell it's a weird shape. It's not like a bird type of shape. And I think that this cruise ship seen something similar. And apparently, these things are becoming more and more of a phenomenon. You know, um, and wouldn't it be something if we could get our hands on that type of technology? I'm sure that the military they know about it. Apparently, they fly military helicopters by that marina um, all the time, trying to figure out what these things are. I'm sure people high up in government are probably very fearful that maybe China got a hold of something, and that this is some type of reconnaissance that they're doing. But you guys know me; I tend to lean to the NHI aspect of it. But I could be wrong in this case, because these things are definitely too small to be manned, so they're not manned aircraft. They're definitely definitely ARV type things, not necessarily alien reproduction vehicles, but they're unmanned, so UAVs, I guess you can call them. But they are anomalous, so they're definitely UAPs. But it's just a very interesting case, all these. So I'm going to show you that. Then I want to get into this Bob Lazar. And I'm just going to give you a brief history for those of you who don't know who Bob Lazar is. I'm going to break this down real quick. For those of you who know who Bob Lazar is, you can skip ahead in the video, and I'll leave chapters in it, and you can skip ahead right to where we get to element 115, and we really start getting into how put offs input and stuff. But for right now, I just want to cover who Bob Lazar is, right? So for those of you who don't know, Bob Lazar, George Knapp was a reporter in Las Vegas, and this anonymous man came forward and said that he was working at the secret military base called S4, right? And this was Area 51. This is when that really gained traction. And he was on camera, but you couldn't see his face, and he was reporting that he was working on flying saucers. Right? He was basically back engineering flying saucers, that he used to work at Los Alamos, that he was at MIT and all this stuff, right? And then eventually he came out, and he showed his face, and he actually got caught right outside the base with some friends recording a UAP in the sky, right? And he was talking about this element called element 115. And a lot of people, over the years, they thought that he was just, full of it. UFO subject was really stigmatized back then. But then whenever Joe Rogan started getting really popular, he did some episodes about Bob. He interviewed Bob Lazar and Jeremy Corbell, and Jeremy Corbell actually made a movie. Bob Lazar was speaking about this element 115 back in '89, right? And nobody ever heard of element 115. He was saying element 115 was this element that was able to, if it was hit with like high amounts of radiation, it was able to it was like an anti-gravitic, it had a lot of anti-gravitic effects, okay? And I guess in the early 2000s, maybe, the Russians actually discovered element 115, but they could only create it, it was unstable. So as soon as they would, you know, get the particle to pop into existence, it would immediately, they couldn't stabilize it in order to use it for anything. I believe it's called like Moscovium or something like that. I could be wrong. You can check that. But whenever it came out that element 115 was real, all of a sudden people started looking at Bob Lazar again under a new light. Like maybe this guy really knows what he's talking about. And it's a very interesting case. So I'm going to get into that. I'm going to show you this clip, and I'll be right back. We'll discuss it.
When you go over the Bob Lazar story, like what are you? How much of you cries bullshit? How much of you's like
I'm more on the side. I think he's the most credible whistleblower because he
didn't profit from it.
And they prosecuted him for running a prostitution ring.
Mm-hmm. Which maybe he was.
Which I think he was. He pled down to.
Now look, AJ, that's AJ from the Y-Files, okay? And for those of you who don't know who AJ is, he has a show called the Y-Files, and he'll run through all these, theories and these stories, and he covers, the weird stuff, kind of like a coast to coast type of vibe to it. But at the end of the shows, he always debunks the stuff that he covers 9 times out of 10. So for him to say that he's like, like he thinks Bob Lazar is probably one of the most credible whistleblowers there is. That's like saying something, right? Because he's usually pretty skeptical.
Pandering, but
they also raided him during the Jeremy Corbell documentary. While they're filming the documentary, the FBI raided his facility, and they said they were looking for something, and supposedly he has a version or a sample of stable element 115.
What?
That's supposedly. Yeah, and that's supposedly what they were looking for.
Well, of course.
Supposedly he had gotten that from the lab.
Now, look, I find that to be, I don't think he has it. Right? I don't think he has a stable form of element 115. I think if he did, he probably would have went to jail after they raided his house. I think that was purely that raid on Bob Lazar's house during the filming of that movie was purely harassment. Because when you're over the target, right, and you're disclosing things and you're coming out about things that they don't want you to come out about, they retaliate. And I'm going to show you another example of that later in the show, but just pay attention to that because that's very important. And I'm going to show you another way that they'll harass you and they'll come after you if you report on these types of things. But
and when he was at S4, and that he had managed to smuggle out a stable chunk of this element 115, and there was a video that George Knapp had from back in the 80s where Lazar was demonstrating how this stuff bends light and what it does, like it has weird effects.
How soon after that raid was 115 is now called Moscovium? How soon after that raid was 115 synthesized? I think it was synthesized in Russia.
Synthesized by a particle collider, and so the when they got it is a very temporary quickly dissolving form, but they proved its existence. And supposedly what Lazar is saying, wherever these beings are from, they obviously have a completely different environment, and they have a stable version of this element.
Yep.
And this element,
I'm going to say this. Could it be possible, like how we have coal and oil here, maybe they have this element 115 like everywhere, like how we, we just dig some, and we mine for coal, right? So, maybe that's readily available for wherever they come from. But here we don't have it, right? And the other thing I want to say is that, it's been said that these beings have the ability to rearrange atoms and build isotopic uh, ratios of metals that are impossible to create here on Earth, and that people actually have these materials, and they're in labs, they're checking them, and you better believe the military is trying to duplicate it.
element is crucial to this gravity propulsion system.
Yes.
That it's a part of this reactor. It gets bombarded with radiation, produces this gravity field, allows you to just slingshot through the universe.
I don't know. Are they working to stabilize it? I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, man.
Why would they raid Bob Lazar?
That's that
Yeah.
spectrum
Right.
of believability again.
Exactly.
Here's a guy who's being attacked and tormented.
In the middle of filming a documentary.
Here we go. UFO whistleblowers fight over medical data heads to court. I'm gonna play this News Nation. Hopefully, I don't get copyright. We're gonna do this thing. Let's do it.
Different story that we're following today, a trial surrounding UFO whistleblower David Grusch. He is taking a Virginia sheriff's office to court, alleging that the department purposely released his medical records and they landed in a hit piece. The trial begins today. News Nation's Ryan Bass joins us live from St. Petersburg, Florida with the latest here. Ryan, good morning to you. What's at the heart of this lawsuit, and what are we expecting as the trial gets underway?
So, Marky, David Grusch says that the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office illegally released these records, which ended up in a news article just a few weeks after he testified on Capitol Hill about these explosive UFO claims that he actually exclusively told News Nation about back in 2023. Now, he believes the medical info was leaked on purpose,
Absolutely.
all to smear him and discredit his record. Now, he says these were private medical records from 2014 and 2018 tied to past struggles with PTSD and depression, which was never meant to be out there. And he thinks it was leaked to The Intercept to make him look bad after he testified before Congress about secret UFO recovery programs. And
That's all I can do, folks. But you see, this is what they do. Yeah, and it's another example of how they attack people that come out and say things they don't like, right? So now we got Bob Lazar, David Grusch. Bob Lazar, they attack him. They raid his house during the filming of the movie about his experiences at S4, reverse engineering alien craft. And now you see this where they're coming after David Grusch for PTSD that he suffered while serving his country. He suffered with a little bit of depression, PTSD, and they come after him the way that they do. This is the stuff that they do when you're over the target. You understand? Like, I just can't stress it enough that, and even Avi Loeb, when Avi Loeb came out about Oumuamua, they came after him as well. His colleagues came after him as well. And this is the repeated. I mean, he didn't have legal troubles or anything like that, and it wasn't like medical records, but in a different way, they came after him. Basically, just saying disparaging things about the man. And I think it's important that I push this to the forefront, and everybody that watches my channel, if you could share this to other people, because the more exposure that we manage to gain about this, the less strength it has to be used as a weapon against somebody in the future or against these guys. And hopefully David Grusch wins this trial. I really hope he does. But I want to see what what Avi Loeb said. I didn't even see this, so I'm looking at this at the same time you guys are. But Harvard professor Avi Loeb, who specializes in UFO research, said Grusch's trial is part of a much larger picture. The personal information about David Grusch is irrelevant to this matter. It may be an obstacle in terms of him gaining credibility, but it's not the issue. And that's just that's what it is, man. UFO appears to evade camera and unseen. The fundamental question is whether the U.S. government has in its possession materials, and are they trying to reverse engineer those materials from crash sites of unidentified objects at the end that end up being extraterrestrial objects. That's what Avi Love said, right? So let me get out of here. You're over the target. The piranhas come. They come for you. This is how it is, and they'll dox you. You see it on X. X is a toxic place, especially for this subject. Um, if you say the wrong things, if you criticize the wrong people, all of a sudden they start attacking you. And that's how you know you're telling the truth, right? The latest was Red Panda Koala, right? He said something about Lou Elizondo. All of a sudden, YouTube took his channel down, copyright struck him, and he was getting harassed on X. It was just pathetic, absolutely pathetic. Thank God he got his channel back. But I want to put this in the forefront of everybody's mind that's onto this subject, that's into this subject, to understand that these are the tactics that they do when you're over the target. Stephen Greer, look at the man. I was watching Danny Jones. Danny Jones had this nobody on there. I never seen a dude in my life, and he's talking about how talking about Stephen Greer's sexuality, saying he's a Mossad agent. I mean, total hit piece, man. Like, this is what they do when you're over the target. And, you know, I'm just here to just put it out there. Now, people have their opinions about Stephen Greer, and Dr. Greer has, look, man, it is what it is. I I respect the man and like the man because I remember what he did in the 90s when this subject was so, man, people would laugh you out of the room if you talked about UFOs back then, right? And he was having meetings with government officials. He was writing letters back and forth with Bill Clinton. And you can actually go check out the National Archives. His letters are there in the National Archives. 1993, he's writing letters back and forth with Clinton. I believe he wrote the letter to Clinton, and NASA answered him. The letter got referred to NASA, and NASA answered the letter. But just the fact that that he actually had the ear, and apparently he was involved with one of the Rockefellers to disclose the alien subject, and for those of you that are new to this subject, I know you may not really know everything that I'm talking about here, but you can go research it. None of the things that I'm saying is false. Um, hey man, truth is in the name of my show. So you're watching UAP Truth 33. So, you know, sometimes the truth hurts. Sometimes people get offended. Hey, but it's important that we keep seeking the truth. Now, look, man, I love checking out some footage, and looking at things and speculating about the subject, speculating about the phenomenon, the nature of the phenomenon, whether there's treaties with the government, aliens, and these people who say things. It's fun, man. And I'll follow those stories. You know what I mean? But I'll tell you, like, look, what do you guys think of this story? I'm not sure. You know what I mean? But I appreciate all you guys tuning in, man. Like, I just love it. But let's check out this. I said, check out Custodian Files. You'll see some really crazy footage on there. Actually, these things, UFOs zipping past fighter pilots, military helicopters over the Del Rey Marina. Very interesting stuff on that channel I've been finding. What do you guys think about this retaliation like they do against Grusch, like they did against Bob Lazar? How do you feel? Does that lend to their credibility to what they're saying? Why else would the government come after them if, dude, you know what I mean? It's just common sense. And I think the more people that see these um these types of retaliations, and it's more than a coincidence. You know what I mean? So hopefully David Grusch wins that case against that sheriff's office for releasing his medical records. You know, but yeah, man, hit me up in the comments. Tell me what you think. Please like, share it to 2 friends. Till tomorrow. Thank you.